Hi guys, it's Sophie. So I wanted to do a haul with you today. It's not massive because as I'm reading less, I'm buying less, but I want to keep doing one a month anyway, so this will be my February haul. I can't see that I'm going to get or buy any more books this month, though if I do, I'll pop them in my March haul for you. So I have 50-50 this time. I've got 3 fiction, 3 non-fiction, and the first one I have is James Baldwin's Go Tell It on the Mountain. I read Notes of a Native Son really recently and absolutely loved it, and so really wanted to find out more about James Baldwin's writing in general, about his fiction. This is the one that appealed to me most, though I think I may read all of his stuff if I enjoy Go Tell It on the Mountain, though I've heard sort of some mixed things about this one. It does sound interesting. So it's essentially about a man who's born in a very religious family and him trying to understand himself. I think it is sort of in terms of his sexuality, with this background of this sort of religious upbringing and very much sort of community around him, and him trying to make sense of the world. So we'll see how it goes. I think it kind of feels like it might be a slightly dark sort of father figure as well, but I know very little about it, to be perfectly honest, and I picked it up on the basis that it's James Baldwin and that I want to try his fiction, so we'll see how I go. And the next 2 I was really kindly sent by the guys at Granta. I'm really looking forward to both of them. The first one is The Patriots by Sara Krasikov. And this one sounds really cool. So this is about a woman who is growing up in 1930s New York, in Brooklyn, and she is sort of finding that her life is fairly enclosed and fairly depressing, and there's not a lot of money and not a lot of opportunities for her, and she finds this chance in her life to go and live in Moscow, and she absolutely jumps for it and disappears off from her life in the States to go and live in Russia. And this woman's story is paired with the story of her son, who works and lives in America and is required to go back to Russia to go and sort of finish this business deal. And it's about sort of home in the sense of where you live, from what I understand, and sort of what makes your country your country. So I think this should be really interesting, and it's fairly chunky. It's sort of about a 500-page one, but I think it's going to be really interesting. We'll see how I get on with it. I don't know quite when I'm going to get to this one, but I'm really hoping that I can get to it fairly soon. But yeah, and let you guys know what I think of it. And the next one is just the coolest idea, and I absolutely jumped at it when they described it to me. And it's Memoirs of a Polar Bear by Yoko Tawade, and the cover's gorgeous as well. And this is like a story told through 3 different generations of polar bears. It just sounds really cool. So there are these 3 bears, and the first one apparently is a diligent memoirist, the second is a skilled dancer, and the third is born and raised in Berlin Zoo. And it appears that they are all sort of tied in with like Germany's history as well. So I think the first bear has escaped Russia to Germany, and just the timings of it make me think it's going to be this great way of telling a really political story without it feeling too on the nose. So I'm really looking forward to this one. It's such a gorgeous book. It's beautifully put together as well. I love these like little flap things, the little French flaps they have, and yeah, like really hoping that I'm going to be able to find a way to read this one in the next sort of 2 or 3 months, and let you guys know my thoughts on it. So I have 3 non-fiction books, and they're all on a similar kind of topic. And the first one is one that everyone's been talking about, and that one is Another Day in the Death of America by Gary Younge, or Younge, I'm not sure. This one I was actually really kindly given by Amy from Shout Amy. She happened to have 2 copies, and this is the proof copy, which has the sort of covering jacket rather than it being all attached together, which I actually really like. So we'll see how I get on with this one. And loads of people have said some really good things, and I'd wanted to get it for a while, and I do this all the time. I want to get to something and I just kind of forget whenever I'm looking out for stuff. But yeah, so I'm sure you've heard about it, but if you haven't, this book takes one random day, one 24-hour period in America, and looks at the victims of homicide by shooting that occurred in that 24-hour period. So there's obviously, you know, a fairly strong political message sort of within this book, but I understand that it is fairly well focused on the lives of the people who have died, and it's more of a personal look at the effects of gun violence. So I'm desperate, absolutely desperate to get to this one. And yeah, I mean, I do this thing where non-fiction just pulls me to read it immediately, so I may read this one really shortly just because I'm so happy to have had it and I think it sounds so intriguing. And the next one I have is Justice by Micheal J. Sandel. And this one is essentially talking about the justice system, but in the context of sort of philosophy rather than anything else. I am not very comfortable with philosophy. It's something that I have never learnt like formally in any in education at any stage of my life, and I've only really picked up what I have through literature. And this is described as like a fairly like easy introduction to different philosophical ideals, and I think that sounds good. It's got some Aristotle, it's got some John Rawls, Kant, talks about just morality in general, libertarianism, utilitarianism. So like it feels like it's going to have fairly like broad strokes, but may give me like a bit of a baseline introduction, because I think philosophy is a topic that I find a little bit intimidating. I feel as though it's something that you have to be taught how to think about, which seems weird. Like I feel like maybe that's, I don't know, but that's the feeling I have about it, is that it's a taught subject. I don't know why I think that, because there's a lot of things that I have never been taught that I would happily read about, but for some reason I have this weird aversion to it, whilst I find it fascinating. So I thought I'd get this one and see what I think. But yeah, I've never heard anything about it or about the guy who wrote the book, so we'll see. But it's kind of links into the next one that I'm about to go into, which is called Against Empathy, by Paul Bloom, and the subtitle for this one is The Case for Rational Compassion. So I picked this one up from the sort of like new releases. I just went into Waterstones in lunch break and just felt like picking up some non-fiction. And this one intrigued me because to an extent I'm trying to find things within non-fiction that sit outside of my comfort zone, because whilst I've been doing that a fair amount with learning about the politics of other countries, that's kind of what I've been doing in the last year in terms of what was out of my comfort zone, I haven't really looked at ideals or philosophies or politics that are outside of my own like realm of understanding. And so it was either this one or Liberals and Cannibals, but I thought this one made me like go, oh, stupid book, more than the other one did. So this is essentially a book that argues that empathy is not a force for good, and it actually causes more suffering than it alleviates. I've actually started this one already, about halfway through, but I'll chat about it more when I do finish it up. So those are the books that I have gathered in the month of February. As I say, I'm not planning on buying anything else. I don't think there's anything else that I'm going to be sent in this month, but if there is, I'll be sure to let you guys know and show it to you in March. I hope you're all well. Let me know what you think of the books I picked down below, and let me know if there's anything in there that you like the sound of. I always love to know that whenever I get like a message or a tweet or like a comment that says, oh, this sounds really interesting, and I might pick it up. It really, like, I don't know, it just gets me a bit excited, like for you and for the author and just for the books in general. So yeah, let me know what you think of these, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys really soon. I'm actually going to have a Wednesday video up again this week, because I've missed doing 2 a week, so I think I may revert to my 2 a week as in Wednesday Saturday schedule, but we'll see how it goes. I'm going to leave it fairly flexible, so you'll always hear from me at least once on the weekend, and sometimes you'll hear from me on a Wednesday as well. Alright, I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye bye.